So you mentioned a number of times also being on the board of the KDEV, and this is like no new thing with you being in a consultancy firm and also being on the board. Like this was happening during Blue Systems as well. But what is the relationship between these like two entities? Because the KDEV, they hire people, and you guys hire people as well. I guess you guys are the
Yep.
same person in this case. Um,
Yeah.
but
So there are many opportunities for conflicts of interest here.
mhm,
This is something we've discussed internally quite a lot. I've signed a new version of our conflict of interest forms and have already recused myself from a number of discussions. But like, it's the truth, hypothetically, theoretically, you could imagine a use case where I push KDEEV to hire somebody to work on software that benefits my company
right.
so that somebody else is paying for it and I don't have to pay for it, right?
Mhm,
That's a potential conflict of interest. Um, you've probably seen that KDEEV has been hiring for a plasma engineer recently.
mhm,
This is something that's been in the works for a while. I've been involved in that, but we've already decided on the board that I'm not going to be that person's supervisor, for example. So there's not even the appearance of a conflict of interest where I could say, hello, person, would you please work on this thing that makes it easier for people in my company to do work so that we generate more profits?
mhm,
We're just not, we're not doing that, right? So I mean, I wouldn't do that, and I don't want to do that. But like, in addition to the existence of a conflict of interest, it's important to also prevent the appearance of a conflict of interest,
mhm,
because the appearance becomes the perception, which becomes the reality in people's minds, right? So
mhm,
like, I have stepped away from that, and I'm not directing that person's activities. Another potential conflict of interest is, what if a person in my employee wants to run for a seat on the board?
mhm.
I've already given this some thought. In that case, I step down from the board because the conflict of interest opportunities there are like unimaginable, right?
Right,
Like, this
right.
basic, this could not be overcome if I'm on the board and I've got a fellow board member, but I'm also that person's boss technically. Like,
Right.
I don't think this kind of thing can work. So I've already decided there really can only be like one person from this company, or rather, I am not going to be on the board at the same time that anybody else from the company is on the
Sure,
board,
sure.
because like, if two people from the company and not me end up on the board, that's probably fine because like their relationship is more flat to each other. But it's just like too much of a conflict of interest for me to be serving at the same time that
Mhm,
somebody I am technically signing the paychecks for
mhm,
is serving. But it's like, it's a small world. Like, this is a very small world. It's hard to avoid each other. And the fact that I'm on the board has definitely been like, it's been a thing to think about and talk about with regards to like how I make sure that there's no appearance or existence of a conflict of interest. I've been really happy with my time on the board,
mhm,
but I also don't feel like I need to be on the board forever. So like, if I run again this year and get defeated, that's fine.
mhm,
If somebody in Tech Paladin wants to run, I'll say, okay, then I won't run. That's fine too. Pretty much anybody there, I think, would do a great job.
mhm,
So like, I'm not looking to, climb every org and become like the president of KDE and take over the world with shadowy puppets or
mhm,
anything.
mhm,
Like, whatever. I don't need to be in charge of that stuff. It's fine.
mhm,
I'm not even in charge. Like, I'm one of five people.
mhm,
Um, the board has been really fun, but it's also like, in a lot of ways, the board was actually good practice for running this company, because it's just like a lot of boring administrative stuff. I
uh-huh,
think it's really easy to see it as this like fun, sexy thing where like you're in charge and you're making decisions and you're changing the world. But like, the reality is, you're mostly responding to emails telling
mhm,
people that like they should go to discuss.kd.org to ask for support for their software. Like,
mhm,
it's a lot of that. It's a lot of like looking at travel support requests and like approving or denying them. Most of it is very administrative in nature. And
mhm,
so,
mhm,
it's fun. I like it. And there are opportunities to make decisions. And I would like to think that some of the decisions I've helped to make have been good for KDE. But, a lot of it is just like kind of turning the crank so that other people don't have to,
mhm,
basically. And that's exactly what it's like running a company too. Like, this is a small business. This is not a big business. So even though technically my title is CEO,
Mhm.
I end up mostly doing like a lot of financial and administrative and bureaucratic stuff. Like I call people up on the phone and I talk with them. I argue with vendors and suppliers and say, hey, you charged us the wrong rate of interest for this thing. And you tried to like sneak it by us because you didn't put the rate on the contract. But like then I calculated it out and found that you were charging us 7% instead of the 3% you said you were going to be charging us. Could you please send us a new invoice? Like it's just a lot of stuff like that,
Mhm.
which hopefully I didn't make that sound exciting because it's not exciting.
Again, to the finance
Um,
nerds, it might be. I don't know.
Maybe to the finance nerds. I mean, I have to admit I'm a little bit of a finance nerd myself, but only a bit. I've tried to grow into this, but like there is just a lot of looking at numbers and invoices and spreadsheets and like interest rates and financial transfer services, like just a lot of nuts and bolts. And that's honestly what it's like being on the board too. Like you help to a certain extent, you help steer the ship, but to a large extent, you're the person shoveling coal into the boiler. Like you're kind of doing both at the same time. You're the captain and you're also the person shoveling coal into the boiler. And I feel like in Tech Paladin, it's very similar to that.
How long have you been on the board for?
2.5 years. It was 2020, late 2022,
Hmm.
I think, or 2023. It's been 2.5 years because the terms are 3 years,
Okay.
and I'm up for re-election this year.
Right. Okay. When are the elections happening? Or
So the
is the date not
elections typically
set?
happen at the AGM, the annual general meeting.
Mhm.
Starting last year, we decided to decouple the AGM from Academy.
Mhm.
So it's not going to be at Academy anymore. Last year, I believe we did the AGM about a month and a half or 2 months after Academy.
Mhm.
The AGM date for this year has not been set yet, but it'll probably be around the same time. So I'm guessing, fall, like maybe October, maybe November at the latest, something like that. But that will be when the election is held. And it's not just me. There are actually 2 seats that are open this year.
Mhm.
Adrian has already announced that he is stepping down, so there will be one open seat. I'm pretty sure I'm running for re-election, unless anybody in the company decides that they want to run, in which case I'll step aside and let them do it.
Mhm.
And then there will basically be 2 open seats.
Mhm.
So there will only be a competitive election in that case if there are more than 2 candidates,
Mhm. Mhm.
which will be fun. I think competitive elections are fun.
Mhm. How have
Um,
how have prior elections gone with like the number of candidates? 'Cause I know some organizations like really struggle with it. Like I believe the OpenSUSE, I think they had like nobody running. The FSF,
yeah.
they've had situations where they had, oh no, Free Desktop, they had a situation where they had 2 seats open and 2 candidates. So things get a bit.
So I don't have a long history here,
Mm,
so I can't speak definitively about everything that's happened in KDE EV's history. But
sure.
in the last couple years, the trend that we've noticed is that people don't generally tend to get challenged. Like when people are up for re-election, often there are no candidates and they just get all the votes because there's nobody else to vote for. But when there are open seats, then often those become a little bit more competitive
Mm-hmm.
and multiple people will step up and run and stuff like that. 2.5 years ago was uh, a bit of an exception. I think it was a competitive one. So there were actually 4 candidates when I got elected. There were 2 people who were running for re-election, and then there were 2 people who decided to challenge them, basically. And one of those people who ended up on the board was me. But that was, I think, probably there are people watching and listening right now who know more than I do, but at least in my recent memory, that was a bit of an anomaly.
Right, right.
I don't think we usually have trouble like finding candidates when needed, but I mean the KDE crew is such an easygoing crew. Like as long as people are doing a great job on the board,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're pretty content to let them do what they wanted. I was kind of the exception because like I also thought the board was doing very good
Mm-hmm.
when I decided to run as a challenger. It wasn't because I thought they were doing a bad job. It was just because I thought I had ideas and I wanted to see if people were interested in my ideas, but it was not like a negative assessment of the people currently sitting there. I thought they were pretty awesome. And now that several of them are my colleagues on the board, I still think they're pretty awesome. So, if I stay there, then I'll be happy. If I end up either not running or being defeated, that's fine too. That's totally fine.
Okay,
Because KDE is still in good hands. I mean, everybody on the board right now is fantastic, and they do just an excellent job at everything that they do. They do a really admirable job steering the organization and keeping it on an even keel and being conservative with funds and not like going off and doing crazy controversial things and making the org look bad. So it's just a good group of people, really.